Fuck it. We're going live instead. Fuck the intro. Fuck the... I can't get it to work. Technical problems.
Are we live now?
Yes, we are. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tagline podcast. I am, of course, your host, the Meerkat Monarch, sometimes known as J.H. Lillevik, and with me, as always, is my buddy...
Gene, the Angry Penguin. And this week we'll be talking about the governor of California, Jerry Brown. That's right?
The former. Before.
Oh.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I didn't know what Jerry Brown had to do with 80s action movies, but...
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about Jerry Brown. No, sorry, Arnold Schwarzenegger. So, yeah, it's kind of a subject that has been talked to death, but when I did the poll, I thought I'm going to put a couple of safe ones on, and then I'm going to put Dolph Lundgren and hope Dolph gets picked, because that would be actually interesting.
Of the three we put up, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Dolph Lundgren, I do believe Arnold Schwarzenegger is the most normal of the bunch. He's actually led a pretty...
Yeah, you completely forgot one of them, who is the most invisible man, apparently, because nobody fucking voted for Sylvester Stallone.
Well, Sylvester Stallone, I mean, what's to say about Sylvester Stallone? It's
He's famous for two fucking parts. Rambo and goddamn Rocky. That's the only thing that he's notable for. Okay, as of late, the Expendables, which we kind of can come into, because that kind of covers all of them.
So what do you think happened back in the 80s? And you may have some little tidbit of knowledge about this that I don't.
Yeah.
What happened back in the 80s that something like the Expendables didn't happen back then? Was it studio contracting back in the 80s? What was it?
There was a little bit of both, actually. Here's the thing. There's always been this sort of... How do I put this? Rumored rivalry between Arnold and Sly. That didn't exist to the degree that people thought during the 80s. You got to remember, Sly actually got introduced to one of his wives by Arnold, which is Brigitte Nielsen. Yeah, Arnold thought they would fit together better than he and her. So that's how they met. And I think he was sort of married to his former wife at the time. So, yeah. But anyway, let's start at the beginning, because you gotta... just give me a second. I'm gonna find the actual Wikipedia article because I've done such stellar fucking pre-work for this.
So you're not going to just throw out Hercules in New York and just let it sit there like the giant classic turd it is?
Here's the thing. The thing about Hercules in New York, which was, as far as I can remember, yes, it was his first movie. And the reason why he got it was because he won Mr. Universe. I think it was a year before, or 2 years before, 1969 or 1968. I can't remember. But let's see, because we could actually see it. Yes, Mr. Universe Amateur 1967, Mr. Universe Pro 1968, 1969, 1970, and then Mr. Olympia, second place in 1969 and first place in 1979. And onwards, he actually won Mr. Olympia all the way into 1980, which was 1980 was actually the year when his career kind of took off, because that's when he
rose.
Yes, that's actually when he started getting the proper parts, because in 1980 he had played the most famous of his 70s movies is Stay Hungry, or I think it's called Pumping Iron.
Yeah.
Stay Hungry was called let me see if I can find that alternative title for it. No, actually, actually, Stay Hungry was not the one that I was looking for. But that and Hercules in New York were the more famous movies that he played in, until he played the Jane Mansfield Story, a TV movie where he played Mike Hargitay. That was in 1980. It was the last of his sort of minor fucking roles that he did during the 70s. So the 70s were a mix of sort of low grade productions and then some bigger ones.
And then
apparently Amazon is recommending to Red Keld, one of our regulars, to buy the Ghostbusters Blu-ray. Don't do it. Step away from the computer. If it tells you to buy that...
Wait, is it the original film?
No, the pre-order.
Dear God, they've given up already.
Yep. Yep.
No, we're not. I refuse to talk about Ghostbusters again.
Yeah, me too. I've said my piece on that pile of shit. So
I want to talk about Predator. God damn it.
Yeah, we're getting to Predator, but first we gotta talk about the original Muscle Man movies, the ones that really rocketed him to stardom, which is the Conan movies.
Conan. Acting not required.
Yeah.
And I think that's, just to throw in the new Conan, I think that's what it suffered from. I think, what was it, Jason Momoa? Did I get his last name right? I think he tried to make Conan a character, and that was his mistake.
Yeah, Conan's not a character; he's an archetype.
Yeah, so. He gets drunk and punches horses. Thank you, Arnold, for punching that horse.
I fucking love that scene. And both of those movies are actually, they still hold up, even though the effects are shit. But they still hold up as entertainment. And they came out in 82 and 84, so
I'd say the first one a lot better than the second. But the second's a lot funner film. Like, if you want a good classic, barbarian movie, you go get the first Conan film.
Yeah.
If you want a good classic 80s barbarian movie, the second Conan film.
Yeah, the Warrior is definitely the way to go then. I mean, Barbarian is more like the origin story, but it's an origin story done in a different way that we're used to now, because he basically doesn't necessarily have that much of a backstory in the movie, as far as I can remember, at least.
What is best in life?
Yeah, exactly.
No, he was just a guy raised in a pit.
Yeah.
Slave pit became super strong, so they decided to make him kill other people.
Yeah.
And he turned out to be really good at that.
So he killed them as well.
Yeah. And then they set him free, and he went on his journey drinking and not giving a single shit until somebody messed with him.
Yeah, and they kind of show a different attitude towards masculinity than movies that are made today. And I think that's another reason why the new Conan movie failed so extremely, because that kind of, here's the thing, there's a lot of that type of fairy tale or that type of storytelling from the ancient sagas and the ancient sort of mythologies of Europe. They exist to the extreme. It's Gilgamesh all over. It's
Beowulf.
Yeah, it's Beowulf. It's not so much Beowulf as it is Sigurd a man that has lost everything and then rebuilds his life. So, yeah, that kind of movie, it's very common and it's very recognizable. And I think that the new one failed because it didn't embrace that kind of storytelling, which is why those two are so classic, in my opinion.
Well, they're not just classic. They have something, and I can say this for all of Arnold's 80s films.
Yeah.
The thing they have that modern, I'll call it testosterone-laden generic action doesn't have. And it's weird to refer to these 80s movies that we think of as like classic action movies. They were generic action for the day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They're
terribly generic.
Were cookie cutter, all of them. All of Arnold's films in the 80s were cookie cutter films.
Yeah, but the thing they had that I think Arnold as not an actor. I haven't got to see Maggie, one of his newer films, which he's trying a little more depth and stuff as he gets older.
Don't, Arnold. Don't do depth. We're scared when you do depth. When you do depth, it ends up with twins, okay? Don't do depth, don't do comedy, and definitely don't do the sequel to Twins.
But the thing he brings to those roles, and you can really see it, and I'll come to one of his newer films. I don't know what year it came out, but The Sixth Day. Yeah. Have you seen The Sixth Day? The cloning one.
Yeah, I have seen.
There is a moment in that film that encapsulates everything Arnold Schwarzenegger was in the 80s to me.
Yeah.
He has a line towards the end of the film where he tells the bad guy, "I hope you experience what I've experienced." And the bad guy says something like the unique thing of seeing your clone, yada, yada. And he says, with the biggest goofy grin on his face, "No, so you can go fuck yourself."
Oh, God.
No, that's the thing. It's the one-liners. It's the fact that this man had so much fun with this cheese.
Oh, and we're going to... a perfect example of that is the train wreck that was Batman and Robin. The man...
Oh, my God.
He was the only one in that movie that seemed to have fun with his fucking lines. And
no, he was having a blast. You could tell every time.
Was it an ice blast?
Yes. It was a blast of cold wind up the rectum. Yeah. But he was the only one. He was getting out there, and every time he delivered one of those one-liners, every time he got to say something.
Yeah.
And you could see it through the 80s film. It was like, here's somebody who seems to appreciate the fact that he's living this dream. Sequence. Yeah. And he gets to say these cool things that you don't get to say in real life. And that's why those films were so much fun.
Yeah.
You know? Because he enjoyed himself.
Yeah, he did. He seemed to have, and that's something that I think he's sort of brought through most of his projects. I mean, even the semi-serious ones, like I mean, the semi-serious ones. I can't believe that I'm actually thinking about calling Terminator and Commando semi-serious. But you know what I mean. That it when he doesn't have a comedic sidekick to sort of play off of, like he had in the Conan movies and Red Sonja, and also in I think it's called Red. Is it Red? Oh, Raw Deal. Raw Deal. Fuck. I can't
Oh
believe I
God.
forgot that.
That's what I forget about.
I have the Norwegian IMDb version up. That is why I'm sort of faltering on titles, because I get the Norwegian titles and they're nothing like the original. So
I'm kind of curious. What's the Norwegian title for, say, Raw Deal?
it kind of it translates. It's a Norwegian phrase for raw deal. So
Oh,
be
okay.
Rotparti would be the correct. It's the correct translation, but it just yeah. I couldn't find the translation for it in my mind, but yeah. But and since we came to Commando and Terminator, Terminator was actually the perfect role for him, in my opinion.
What, you mean it required no acting?
And it required no acting, and all he had to do was put on sunglasses and look like he had no fucking expression, which is kind of his shtick anyway.
You have to admit he has some glorious facial expressions.
And he shows them off to a T in Terminator 2, in Judgment Day. In my opinion, especially if you've never seen the extended cut of Terminator 2, I'm sorry, you have to end yourself unless you can get to a copy within the next 72 hours and watch it, because
Oh,
that is actually in my opinion, the better version of.
really? I had nobody. I've never heard anybody talk about the extended cut. So I've never really looked into it. I've always seen the original cut, the theatrical cut.
Dude, buddy, you need to see the extended version, because it explains a lot of the jokes between John Connor and Arnold's, between John Connor and T-1000 and the T-1000. It just, for instance, there's a sequence, and I hope I don't spoil this for anybody out there, but it's been like fucking.
Yeah, I was gonna.
It's 20 years. It's over 20 years.
Did you just give a spoiler warning for a 20-year-old film?
Yeah. There's a sequence where they've just been to the gas station and they've just had they're picking ammunition out of Arnold's back. And then the scene for the original film, for the theatrical release, cuts. But then you also get a second scene where they remove the ability for him to learn new things. They remove that sort of hindrance so he can learn new things. And for instance,
I do remember. I have seen the extended cut. I do remember that scene.
Yes, then you have seen it. And then that also explains the joke that they cut to after that scene where they remove, because John Connor and Arnold get in a car. He he tries to start the car by just smashing into the ignition sequence and then grabbing out wires and hot wiring it, while John Connor just flips the sunscreen down, and down falls the keys, and then he flicks them in front of the Terminator. Are we learning anything yet? And that joke falls completely flat if you don't have the extended cut. And I actually think that T2 is slightly better than the original.
I'd go even further. I think Terminator 2 is significantly better than the original. Not to disqualify how good the original is. That's just how good Terminator 2 is.
Yes. And Terminator 1 is really good. It's one of my favorite sort of science fiction thrillers, I guess you could call it. And it does raise a couple of questions that are that try to be existential, yet it's kind of done in a very sort of
James Cameron-esque way.
Yes. So very, very fucking superficial. So it's the robots will rise, deal with it, sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this, and I may get a little hate for this, but as far as the intellectual level of filmmaking, I kind of put James Cameron in the same boat with Michael Bay. I don't go in expecting to think much.
I'm not gonna completely disagree with you, but I'm also gonna say, yeah, I kind of agree with you. It's not that he's. Here's the thing. There's a difference between James Cameron and Michael Bay. James Cameron does what James Cameron does, not for James Cameron, but James Cameron does what James Cameron does for James Cameron. No, but he does things that he knows works because he is he listens more to other people than Michael Bay does. Michael Bay is so sure of himself that he runs through everything and just I'm gonna make this, and fuck you for not listening to me. And he gets his hands on fucking franchises that make money no matter what.
Well, I mean, he's a savvy businessman. You have to give him that.
Oh, I'm not taking anything away from him. Dude, the man can make money and he can tell a half-ass story. That's Speaking of half-ass stories, back to 80s action film. Yes.
And specifically Commando.
Yes. Because let's skip Reg Sonja because he hardly appears in that one.
I would like to say with Commando, watching Commando as a young boy is a glorious thing.
Yeah.
And I'm really sad that this generation of tween to early adolescent young men don't get the same just stupid action heroes we got back in the day.
No, but Commando's so good, though. It's so bad, it's so good.
Oh, no, it's absolutely horrible. I think my favorite part of Commando is the fact that the main villain, the guy who's supposed to be, I believe the trope thing is called Dragon. He's the Dragon. He's the main villain's actual tough sidekick.
Yeah.
Was just this terribly out of shape guy who was scared to death of the main character.
Yeah.
That was what he was. You could tell he wasn't in the same shape. I don't know if that was just bad casting or what, but Bennett was never a threat to the Commando.
No. That is
nothing
actually,
was.
No. Yeah, it's a weird fucking movie, but it's still it kind of, here's the thing, it kind of goes into that sort of very typical male tropes that we always had in the 1980s movies. You had the main guy being this man of action, this guy who would never allow anybody to get in harm's way,
Yeah.
and he was uncompromising, yet he manages to always he manages to keep his principles but also save his family, kind of
Well,
deal.
and how did Hollywood lose that formula works? That it still works. I mean,
yeah, it's
look at Taken.
Oh yeah,
Taken is
Commando.
Commando.
Yeah, Taken is Commando. There's no fucking doubt about it. It's done in a more sort of Hong Kong inspired way with more fast-paced camera and more fast-paced action, but it's still fucking Commando.
Better dialogue.
Oh yeah, dude, the amount of fucking half-assed one-liners in Commando, and the absence of fucking, but sometimes the absence of dialogue, like in Commando, could actually work better than a bunch of stupid fucking one-liners.
Well, yeah, it's like sometimes, like Commando, his character in Commando, and I use that word loosely, that iteration of Arnold staring at the camera, didn't talk much. I mean, that just wasn't, he wasn't the witty guy. He was the guy that was going to show up at your base and hide behind a potted plant. Thank God those roses were bulletproof. Because they would have just cut him to ribbons if they weren't. Yeah, and if you haven't seen Commando,
go see it.
Anybody listening, if you haven't seen Commando, go watch Commando. Yeah. Just grab a bottle of your favorite liquor and just sit down, turn your brain off, and watch evil get mowed down.
And our next movie is actually the 1980s version of Rush Hour. Raw Deal.
Raw Deal?
Yeah.
Is not one of my favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movies.
No, I get that. I get that. But I'm saying it's the 1980s version of... Actually, Rush Hour could actually be said that Raw Deal is the 1980s version of Rush Hour, but you could also say 48 Hours with Eddie Murphy is also the same thing. It's the sort of... But here's the reason why I say it's the 1980s version of Rush Hour. There's almost the same fucking scene with Arnold confronting, I think it's James.
Yeah, it's Belushi.
Yeah, James Belushi.
The other one.
Yeah, Jim Belushi. I think that is correct. I can't seem to find actually who played against them. I may actually be misremembering the movie. I could have
sworn it was.
Yeah, I could. No, that's Red Heat from 1988. That's another movie.
Oh,
yeah.
Maybe I haven't seen Raw Deal.
No, Raw Deal is, but Red Heat was the movie I was talking about, and that came in 1988. I kept mixing. God damn it! I lost my nerd cred again because I mixed up Raw Deal with Raw Deal is basically Commando. Because it's a former FBI agent turned small town sheriff who agrees to help the FBI infiltrate the Chicago mafia when the FBI's chief's son is killed by them. So it's a Steven Seagal movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger in it.
Oh, okay, that explains why it's not one of the
Yeah,
more
yeah.
popular ones. It
So
just
yeah, I still feel kind of bad. So yeah, I remember that movie, but I don't really remember the actual plot. So I just remembered watching it and looking at it and just saying, is this Commando? Because it
well,
looked so much like it, and it's a year after. So they basically made two movies back to back that looks exactly the same. And the next one, however, is quite different because it's Predator, and it's one of your favorite
uh,
movies.
Predator is just one of those just action movies that combines that little like it's good. I enjoy it because it does what sci-fi does best.
Yeah,
Sci-fi is not a genre unto itself. Sci-fi is always combined with something to tell a more unique type of story.
yeah,
In this one, it is a sci-fi action movie. You know, uh, it is a generic action movie about some guys in the jungle. Only they're fighting an alien crab with dreadlocks.
yeah.
Um,
They're basically fighting the alien version of Artemis, our buddy.
oh God, I think I'll take that as a compliment. Actually,
For Artemis, yeah, it is a
oh yeah,
compliment.
definitely. Well, it might
Yeah,
be a compliment for the Predator comparing him to Artemis.
yeah,
But no, and that's what it is. And I just love you. You've got these tropes. You got all the trope guys with him.
yeah,
You know, he's leader trope, and you've got bureaucrat trope traveling with them,
yeah.
and
You got buddy
pretty
trope.
pretty buddy trope,
Yeah,
uh, honorable warrior trope,
yeah. In
pretty
the
native woman
yeah,
trope. Uh,
you got it all. Basically, it's Trope City. I think actually Anita Sarkeesian lives in Trope City. So I'm sorry if
I
I
think
doxed
I'm
her.
not touching that one
No.
because it would be wrong. We don't
Yes.
have her permission.
No.
Uh,
You have
but
mine.
but
It was my joke. It was
Predator.
my joke. So you have my permission to touch it.
No, I'm okay. You can touch it yourself. Uh, but that's the thing. That's good sci-fi to me.
Yeah.
You know, there is some sort of sci-fi element to a regular film that elevates it above just a generic version of that film.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I'm pretty sure Dolph Lundgren was in at least one rip-off of that. Was he the one in I Come in Peace? You're the one with IMDb up.
Give me a second. I'll find Dolph.
Was that Dolph? I know the movie's called I Come in Peace.
Because he did a bunch. He actually plays in a sequel to Kindergarten Cop.
Oh, apparently his alternate title is Dark Angel.
Oh, okay. Dark Angel. Give me a second because he's played in a lot of fucking movies. Dark Angel. Yeah, in 1990. It came out at the same time as Predator 2 came out, actually. So.
Oh wow, they didn't even bother ripping off the original film. They ripped off the sequel.
Yeah, I think they ripped off the sequel, actually. And Dolph is also, he was the next Arnold. Everybody kept referring to as the next Arnold, but I actually think that Dolph has a little bit more depth to his parts.
Dolph. Well, Dolph has, I think, a little bit more depth to Dolph.
Yeah.
I think he's a much more interesting case study in real life.
Yeah.
We won't get into that, but Dolph, if you're ever curious, look into Dolph Lundgren's history. He's a very interesting man.
Yeah,
He's lived
he
a
is.
very strange life.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
I don't think, and basically, I know we're going on the movies and we're just kind of drooling over our childhood here, but I think the thing that made Arnold Schwarzenegger unique in his own way
Yeah.
that the others don't have, especially not Steven Seagal, is the charisma.
Yeah.
Arnold Schwarzenegger had that, whatever it is,
He
that
was
when you saw him on screen,
yeah. When you saw him on
when you
screen.
saw him on screen,
Yeah.
he had the screen presence. He had what it took. That even though Dolph Lundgren is probably a better actor at the end of the day, Dolph couldn't pull off what Arnold could do.
Exactly. He's the muscle man you want to hang out with. When you see him smile, and when when he's actually being happy, he seems like he's a happy guy, but you don't want to piss him off. But Dolph seems constantly to be the type of guy that could snap any second. and that's the difference between them, in my opinion. But we should cover the Running Man and Twins before we basically call it a day, because we're closing in on 40 minutes. So The Running Man is another science fiction movie based upon a book by Stephen King, written under his pseudonym. I can't remember.
Richard Bachman.
Yeah, it's Rick.
I'm a huge
Bachman,
Stephen King fan.
Yeah, it's Richard Bachman. Yeah.
And it really doesn't have any. It's like Lawnmower Man. It's very loosely, because
it's
the Lawnmower Man short story.
Yeah, it's the same fucking concept, but it's not.
No. I'll take a moment to explain this. But the Lawnmower Man story is about a goat man mowing a guy's yard naked.
Yeah.
So it's not even the same concept for the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the same concept. You have evil corporations making people do games.
Yeah.
Making criminals do games. And of course it's the 80s,
the Hunger Games.
He was falsely accused.
Yeah.
Because nobody in the 80s ever actually did the crime they were accused of that got them in the death tournament.
And it actually is a really good movie, in my opinion. I love The Running Man. And to be quite honest, it's better than any fucking dystopian movie released currently.
I would say The Hunger Games would be better if towards the last few movies Jennifer Lawrence clearly didn't want to be there anymore.
Yeah.
Everybody around her was giving it their all, and she just sucked the spirit out of that film.
It's so horrible to be in a multi-million-dollar franchise, and I'm not making as much money as I should because I was stupid and signed a contract for the entire franchise instead of just signing on for one fucking movie. Is that the Jennifer Lawrence we're talking about?
Yes, we're talking modern day Jennifer Lawrence, not young, happy to be here Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah, exactly. But going back to Running Man.
Running Man is what I would love to see happen to a lot of modern Hollywood.
Yeah.
Just out of that pool, throw them in a situation, cover a fat man with Christmas lights, and let him try to kill him with a car.
Yeah. It's such a the amount of the scene that sort of branded itself in my mind is the hockey scene. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
That one actually is sort of burned into my retina from that movie, and that I think that's one of the. It's dystopian, but it's not dystopian as though, this could never happen. They couldn't build these cities without, the support of the people. kind of deal.
Well, I think
it's more Detroit today that they actually made the movie in. So it's
it's like RoboCop was Prophecy.
yeah.
But no, but here's the thing I think that elevates Running Man in a way that I think a lot of the modern dystopian stuff, even Hunger Games, probably not as guilty of it as some of the other ones. Mostly
No.
because the other ones didn't have the budget to do what they'd like. But it built a world without expressly telling you everything that was going on. It showed you the world. It showed you the technology. It introduced you to different things. It didn't feel the need to explain everything.
Yeah, it didn't feel like it was chewed up. A lot of it was sort of, okay, we're going to show you like snippets of it's almost at the same level of explanation about things as Blade in certain areas. If you understand what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, you need to know a little bit to introduce you to terms and stuff.
Yeah.
But once you have the audience insert character, and they didn't even really have one here. I think it did a better job. I really just think it did a great job of world building, because I never, during the film as a kid, did I not know what was going on? Did I not understand
exactly,
or have to be? And I still haven't watched the new Ghostbusters. But apparently, this is one of the complaints I've heard. It's like explaining everything to you.
Yeah.
How does this work?
And
it didn't feel the need. It just showed me.
Yeah, and people are a little bit tired of that. Here's the thing. It's a rule that we learned as authors, as writers, but screenwriters don't practice this. Sometimes you don't need to go into detail, because sometimes the reader or the audience member actually goes into detail for you, because you can play off the typical popular sort of stereotypes by just mentioning a few things about that stereotype, and then the reader or the audience member will fill in the blanks.
Well, I think modern films assume a level of stupidity of the audience. It's kind of insulting, really. Whereas they didn't need to explain the technology. Remember the fight scene where I can't remember what it was named, but he was the old champion. They were going to bring him back.
Yeah, they had to bring him back. Yeah.
And he was like, I don't need these gadgets. I'm going to fight him with my bare hands, because that's how I roll, And he walked off. So they immediately put these duplicates out there. They didn't explain how they did the duplicates.
No.
They showed on a computer in the background how they were overlaying the imagery, and there was like a half of a one-off line of the guy saying, "Oh, I did this," and he named whatever the technology was.
Yeah.
And that was it. We can see the results of what it was they were doing. He didn't have this cameo of some famous nerd come in and explain this technology they were going to use.
Well, we superimposed this, and then we sort of zoomed in here, and then we used this doll to show you where we were touched as children.
No, not that doll. That's Baba. That's my private doll. No, and I guess I know we're running long.
Yeah.
I guess we should at least mention twins. It's a thing that happened. I am a rather large Danny DeVito fan.
Yeah. And here's the thing. At least it's not Junior. That's about what I can say about it.
I forgot about Junior.
Yeah.
Until this moment. My life was much happier when I didn't remember Junior was a movie.
Yeah. And the thing about Twins, even though he did Total Recall and Terminator 2 after that Twins was again followed by Kindergarten Cop in 1990. And
now, while we're on this subject
yeah.
of Arnold Schwarzenegger's in comedies, there is one comedy he was in that I feel does not get near the credit it deserves, and that is Last Action Hero.
Oh yeah, I totally
Last
agree.
Action
Last Action Hero.
Is Last Action Hero was glorious.
Yeah,
In the fact that
it was a tribute to the 1980s psychotic movies. Basically, it was everything Arnold was at the time.
Yeah, and it got something right that, and we probably need to talk about this one week, that modern films don't. The villain.
Yeah.
It has my favorite villain for no reason, and this is probably a good spot to end. For no reason, the villain's sitting there cleaning his fake eye, which sometimes is a bomb, and he looks up and he's sitting there polishing his eye, and he says, "If God were a villain," and then he looks at camera and says, "He'd be me."
Yeah.
For no reason. That's a villain.
Yeah.
This is this guy who's gloriously evil.
And it's Charles Dance as well. That's the funniest thing. It's Charles Dance, and he plays the archetypal badass bad guy.
Yeah, just everything about that. I think that's going to be my recommendation for this week, because I don't think a lot of people have really seen it.
Let's do recommendations then.
Last Action Hero. If you have not seen it, do yourself a favor and see it. See our main hero, Danny fucking Madigan, wander the action. It's an inside joke with me and my friends. I can't not say it. That's his name. To briefly explain it, we were watching the film one day, and my buddy just got irrationally angry at the kid, and he just kept saying that for like 3 hours. Danny fucking Madigan. But you get in there and watch it. It is the adventure the kid goes on is what we all wanted to do during the 80s. We all wanted to get sucked into a Arnold Schwarzenegger film.
Yeah.
And go on the adventure.
Yeah, that during the early 90s, that was I was so jealous of him when Last Action Hero came out.
Of Danny fucking Madigan.
Yeah, Danny fucking Madigan. Yeah, let's end it there. I'm gonna recommend. I think I actually might recommend the Red Heat movie that I sort of said was raw deal, but Red Heat is actually a pretty good balanced buddy sort of cop buddy comedy.
Yeah, Belushi, even though a lot of people aren't big fans of his, he plays off people really well.
Yeah, and he plays off Arnold perfectly in that movie, in my opinion. It's believable that Arnold is this Russian cop without any sort of emotions whatsoever. And James Belushi is believable as a New York City cop.
Yeah, kind of schlubby,
typical,
world-weary.
Sort of a step away from being that guy from NYPD Blue that I keep forgetting the name of. That is really hard to pronounce because his ancestry is Polish.
Oh,
yeah,
Polish.
Yeah, but Red Heat and Last Action Hero. I think that's two very good recommendations to come from us.
Yeah. Well, everybody, thank y'all for tuning in to the Tagline podcast with J.H. Lillevik, the Meerkat Monarch, and myself, Gene the Angry Penguin. You can catch Jan on Friday afternoons, 4 p.m. East Coast time, on the Unsolicited Opinions podcast with Artemis Ira and Dr. Evil, and kind of rotating cast.
Yeah. Sometimes Roy there, sometimes Shikaki's there, sometimes Usto's there. Yeah.
And occasionally I'm off on Fridays and I show up. But Thank y'all for tuning in. Next week we will be discussing, which is actually appropriate, practical effects versus CG effects in horror films.
Yes.
So, you know, the classics, because we were discussing some classic films earlier, and we decided their remakes were total shit. So we will be discussing that in more detail next week. Same time.
Same channel.
Bye, guys.
Bye.